Last week I had to drive to Cheyenne, and it was a great opportunity for me to return a call actually from an old college buddy of mine who had called me a week before, and I had time to really talk, and it's been a good long conversation. You know, it's been 40 years. 40, can't seem possible. But it was 40 years ago, he and I were running around together with a couple other folks, and we just had a lot of fun together. So we caught up on what we did then, and we talked about our families, and we had a bunch of laughs, and we shared a couple of regrets as well. I don't know if you have those in your life, but you look back on things and you think, gee whiz, what was I thinking, you know? Why were we that rude or unkind or, you know, who knows, drunk? You know, why did we do, and we decided, he and I, that, you know, we were just kids, honestly. 20, 21, 22, just kids, figuring it out, doing the best we could. We did the best we could. We maybe didn't do the best, we weren't our best selves, but we did the best we could. And that's not who we are now, we talked about. It doesn't define us those days. You know, in my 40 years since then, I've had to let go of some behaviors and some lifestyles. And actually, frankly, now sometimes I have trouble letting go of those memories. I don't know, does anybody else ever wake up in the middle of the night and go, just me? Me and Steve. Just me and Steve. Maybe there's one or two others battered around, but sometimes. So I was reminded then, it was like a show that my wife is forcing me to watch now, called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. Anybody? Yeah. Like, it's really popular with people your age, Jeannie, right? So our daughter told my wife, who informed me we were watching it now. And so I'm watching Tidying Up. It's on Netflix. You should watch it. It's really fun. She's about this tall, and she speaks virtually no English, but she goes into people's houses. Now, it's not as bad as Hoarders. Anybody ever watch the show Hoarders? Okay, it's not a hoarder situation where there's like, you know, pot, like, you know, just everywhere. It's not that, but it's like normal people who've let things get a little out of control. They want to get back into their family room and they just can't. Okay, that's what it is. And so the first thing that she tells them, if you're going to follow her method, is the first thing she says is take all of your clothes, everything, stitch of clothing you own, out of your closet or out of your drawers, wherever you're hiding it, and you get it out and you put it on your bed. Now, the funny thing to me is how many clothes people have. I mean, holy smokes. I haven't done it yet for myself, but I imagine my pile. And there are clothes that are piled up that have tags on them. You know? In my case, it'd be all beat up, ratty old clothes, you know, from 20 years ago. But anyway, so the first thing you have to do is put them all on your bed, and then you have to hold them up one by one. And you have to say to yourself, does this piece spark joy in me? That's her word, that's her phrase, and it's the name of her book. Does this piece spark joy in me? And if it does, you keep it. It goes in the keep pile. And if it does not, you put it in the pile to either give away or throw away. But first you thank it for its service. Thank you for your service. It's very Japanese. I love it. And then it goes in the pile. Okay. And I was thinking, not everything that we keep is good for us, or gives us joy, or is worth keeping at all in our lives. That goes for physical stuff for sure, but it also goes for spiritual stuff, and for emotional stuff. It goes for intentions, and actions, and desires, and objectives, and even maybe memories that we wake up with and haunt us, you know? Okay. So the first thing, if you're going to sort through things, is you have to know the not-so-good stuff from the good stuff. Right? And to do that, you have to have some light. She never tells people, go in a dark room and look at them. She says, turn on the lights, take a look at them, right? You have to have light to tell what's going on. In the dark, everything looks the same. If you don't believe me, try this. Unplug the light bulb in a refrigerator, and then just open it up and eat whatever you grab, right? You might be surprised at what's in there. Everything looks the same in the dark. It does. But in the light, you can tell. Physically, you must have light, I think, to tell the good from the not so good. And spiritually, I think you need the light of Christ. Back to our sermon last week about Epiphany, where it is the great light of Christ God's light coming into the world. So here's the point, you guys. Once Christ has come into your life, you now have the light of Christ, and that light can help you look at your own life and decide what things are good and what things are maybe not so good. What things you want to keep and what things you maybe don't want to keep. That's what the light of Christ can do for us. That's the whole point of Jesus' incarnation, of the birth, and the light of God's own Spirit to illuminate us so that we can see more clearly what is good and not so good. And then to empower us through the Holy Spirit, to encourage us, to inspire us, to let go of the not so good and hang on to the good. Okay. This week I was listening to a podcast about the readings for the week, which I always do. And this person was reading the reading for today, the Luke passage, right? And when they got to this part, he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather the wheat into his granary, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire. Now, have you heard that before? I hope so, because we had it 4 weeks ago. Now, I don't know why. We get the same text 4 weeks. It wasn't the exact, but this part was contained, this sentence, right, was contained in the exact same. 4 weeks ago we had it. Now, I don't remember what I preached on that day. I have no idea. Maybe you remember, but I doubt it. But I guarantee you it wasn't this sermon. It was something different. But here's the thing. I'm listening to this person read about this winnowing fork in his hand. And when he says he has his winnowing fork is in his hand, I didn't hear the in. I thought he said his winnowing fork is his hand. And I got this beautiful image of Jesus' hand sifting through this pile of wheat and lifting up the grains of wheat and seeing that the wheat and the chaff fall apart through his fingers. And I had to go look it up because I thought, well, I've never heard it that way before. And of course I was wrong. Of course it says winnowing fork, and that's how we usually think of it. It is that. The winnowing fork is in his hand and he lifts it up. But I'll tell you what, I like my translation better now. And I will never hear this text the same way, that I don't think, instead of the winnowing fork, that I don't think of Jesus' hands doing the winnowing. Jesus' hands reaching into the grain and lifting it up and letting the wheat fall with the chaff together. The great Baptist preacher Fred Craddock said that the wheat and the chaff in Luke's story are not different things, really. They are two parts of the same fruit from the same plant. In other words, we can imagine that God is not separating people one from another. In other words, God is not taking the fork and saying, bad ones here, good ones here. It is not that way. God is looking at us and saying, you have both good and not so good in you. Like all of us have both wheat and chaff. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it this week, right? Like it's not separating us, goats and sheep and good and bad and heaven and hell. It's lifting into our lives and lifting up the grain and saying, look, let's hang on to this part, and this part we just don't need so much. So I have a suggestion. We are all a mixture of good and not so good. I hesitate really to say bad or evil. You're not evil. I know you. You're not bad. But all of us have good and not so good in us. Maybe we always aren't our best selves. Maybe we aren't always living up to our highest calling. But even when we remember the stuff we've done that we don't like to remember, that memory is a gift to be able to remember something. Don't let it be a burden. And when you're being tortured by some memory in the middle of the night, or an unhealthy emotion, or an unkind action, or even some kind of a sad memory, or maybe all of them, I say don't ignore them. Don't ignore them, because they're not going away unless you take a long look at them in the light. Lift up each one Maybe even imagine Jesus' hands lifting with yours all the various fruits of your life, all the things you've done, the stuff you're proud of and the stuff you're not so proud. Lift it all up with Jesus, I'm saying, these hands lifting with yours and sifting out the stuff that is best and the stuff that is not. And everything that comes to your mind and that you hold up, ask yourself this: does it bring you joy? Or has it outlived its usefulness in your life? If it brings you joy, hang on to it, nurture it, multiply it. If it doesn't, thank it for its service and let it go. Luke would say, let the holy fire of God burn away that chaff. So let Jesus' hands lift up and sift out all in your life in his holy light and illuminate. Let him illuminate the difference between who you were and who you are, and who you are and who you wish you could be. And let the fire of God's Holy Spirit burn away the stuff that you need to let go of and help you focus entirely and joyfully on the things that you keep.